It's upgrade day. So we get to put this into this right after this. Hello and welcome to Skool's Tech Talk. My name's Jim. We do tips, tricks, how-tos, and reviews on some of the latest tech gadgets out there today. And today we are finally going to do the upgrade on my system. I've been waiting to get my hands on the AMD processor, the 3900X, not the 3950, and I'll get into why I didn't get that later in the video. But we're going to do an upgrade today. I'm going to show you how to swap out the processors. The big thing is I want to see what the value is with my existing hardware. Every video I've come across, they've all got brand new X470 boards, specific RAM, specific coolers. They basically put this chip under what I feel optimum situations. Now, granted, I know most of these tech channels, they get this stuff from AMD, and AMD wants them to test with specific things. Fine, I got it, not a problem. But let's talk real world here. Most of us are not going to go out and buy a brand new board, brand new set of memory, a brand new processor, and a specific cooler, and possibly even a different case depending on what type of board you want to go with. We're just not. It's a way of life. So I will run down exactly what I have in my system now, and we're just going to do a straight processor swap, which is what I feel most will do. It's a $500 processor. You might be able to find it a little cheaper here and there, but it's $500, this 3900X. The 3950, you can't even get your hands on, and if you do, you're paying way more than what it's worth. Somewhere close to $900 I've seen it listed at, which is ridiculous. It's scalper pricing, in my opinion. But we're just going to do a straight swap, see how it runs. I've got tests run beforehand. We're going to run some tests afterwards, and we're going to see if the value is there just doing a straight processor swap. All right, breakdown. What do we got in this little lovely piece of machinery? I love my PC. Case is Lee & Lee. If anybody's wondering what it is, I'll put a link down below. I love the case too. It's really designed for water cooling, but I use an AIO in it. But well, all right, what's in the system? So I have a Crosshair Hero 7 X470 motherboard. I am currently running a 2700X processor. I have 32 gigs of RAM. I have a Cooler Master ML360R cooler to keep the processor down. Those of you that have seen the previous video, you know I'm running a 2080 Super for video card. I feel it's a pretty extensive setup, but what you can expect in most people's houses that do any type of gaming or video rendering, it's a little bit more powerful than your over-the-counter system, but does exactly what I needed to do. So now, those that are not familiar with the 2700X, that is an 8-core 16-thread chip. It's been out probably over a year now, maybe a year and a half. Solid chip. I've been able to overclock it pretty well to get what I need out of it. The new chip, the 3900X, is a 12-core 24-thread chip. I needed more room, or more processing power, I should say, in order to video edit and what have you. As far as a gaming perspective, I'm gonna bet these chips are probably equal, maybe a little bit better performance on the 3900, but if this is a gaming rig that you're looking to update, I wouldn't spend $500. If it's a multitask, once I get the test run, you may want to spend $500. But the full spec on this 3900X is the 12-core, 24-thread, 4.6 gigahertz chip. Now that's a max rating. Obviously, you probably won't come close to that if you're just running it stock out of the box. 70 megabytes of game cache, It's a stupid term. 105 watts of total of TDP. You can overclock it. It's an unlocked chip. Does come with the Wraith Prism cooler, and it fits all the AM4 socket boards. Now that we have all the tech stuff out of the way, all the jargon, all the nonsense, let's go ahead and pop this in. I'll walk you through the process of swapping it out, what you should look for, and then we're going to get it all connected back up, run a few tests on Cinebench, which I will get into what that is later, and we'll see what we get for a jump on it. So let's get our hands dirty. All right, so the first thing you want to do is obviously open your computer case. Depending on your case, you may need a set of screwdrivers, pliers, what have you. If you're using the included Wraith Prism cooler, that will come with thermal paste applied to it. So you can go out and get more if you want, but you can use the one that's on there. It's not bad. I've used the Wraith Prism in the past, and I've had minimal issues with it. All right, let's get this thing off. So I need the pliers. Now, with this particular cooler, the Cooler Master ML360R, these are designed that you cannot over tighten them, which is cool because I want to get as much clamped down pressure and contact with the cooler plate for my processor. So knowing that I can't honestly screw it up is always a bonus. So if you are in the market for looking at AIOs, I would definitely look at this one as it's pretty foolproof. It does come with a ton more wires, which is the downside of it. It's not very streamlined, but it's a good one. I've been using it for about a year, so I can't complain. All right, here's the fun part. We get to wiggle this on off, make sure the clamps aren't connected, and done. Okay, so now we're going to disconnect the actual unit from the board so we can get a look underneath here. That all needs to come off. What you want to do is with some lint-free towels or Q-tips, coffee filters, and 90% isopropyl alcohol, just give this a good clean in. So I'm going to clean this up. I'm going to clean up that processor and take it out, and I will be right back. Cold plate is clean on the AIO. The old processor is all cleared up. So we're just going to pop it out of the system. So there's a little bar over on the side here. I don't want to block the light too much. But ultimately, you're just going to pull it out a little bit and pull it up. So you hear a nice little pop. And that's it. Processor is ready to remove. Big thing to be aware of if you're coming from Intel and you're doing an upgrade. If you're just swapping out a processor, you already know that with the Ryzen chips, the pins are actually set. We can get this to focus here on the actual install chip. There we go. You bend any of these, this processor is useless to you. So if you want to keep it for a backup PC or in case your new processor dies, I would put it in the case that the new processor comes in so you don't ruin these pins. Now, putting in the new processor, which is going to be this one. There we go. This is the new one. We're going to go show you the same type of pin layout on the back. Now, when putting these in, there is the world's smallest arrow, and you're not going to be able to see it, I'm 99% sure, down in this corner right here. And there's going to be an arrow actually on the board in this chip socket that you're going to need to line it up with. Once again, pretty easy. Arrow to arrow. Just kind of drop it in there. Give it a little wiggle both ways, make sure it's fine. And then all you got to do is push the bar down and you're done. Processor's in. Now we're going to apply the thermal paste so we can put our cooler back on. Holy cow, is this like the biggest bitch fest on, pardon my language, on how to apply thermal paste. You can never put on too much You can put on too little. Do whatever's good for you. That's P size in the middle seems to be the standard. I've done P size in the middle, one on each corner just to be on the safe side. With the Thermal Grizzly, comes with this cool little applicator right here, where you can just spread it right on the processor. Nice thin layer, everybody's happy. All right, so we got everything connected back up. Processor, AIO, wires are all connected, routed, where they need to be. So now we're gonna connect everything back up, monitors, power, and everything, make sure it works, make sure all the settings are where they need to be, and then we're gonna run a few benchmarks, see if this improves over where it was. Kind of an FYI, if you're first building your set, all of these components you should probably connect, not probably, you should connect before you put them in your case, to make sure everything's working properly so you don't have to go back and once you get it all built, oh geez, I got to take this out. Test everything outside of the case. In my case, I know everything works. Everything in here is perfectly fine. It's just the processor that we're changing out. So I'm going to just pop it in, pop it out, take the risk. If it doesn't work, it's not that hard to pop the other one back in. Highly recommend test your components before you build them into your system. All right, we got everything connected up. It's ready to go. You might hear the fans churning a little bit right now. Not uncommon when you're first updating your CPU. The system doesn't know what to do, so it just goes full tilt in some instances. We installed correctly, so everything is there. It shows us the Ryzen 9 3900X. Shows us my total memory of 32 megabits or 32 gigs, whatever verbiage they were using. My 3 hard drives. And now at the bottom it says new CPU installed. Please enter setup to configure your system. So we're just going to jump into there, make sure everything's good, and then I'm going to show you a software app on this computer that comes with the Asus boards where it'll automatically overclock for you. Yep, that's where everything should be. Perfect. All right, so the only thing I'm going to change in here is I'm going to go to the Extreme Tweaker, and I'm going to change my memory to 2666. Now, the memory itself that I have is actually rated for 3000, but here's a downside with AMD, with the Ryzen processors. Unless you use a specific tool, you can't get the memory to go above 2666 if you're using more than 2 channels. If you're using just 2 sticks of memory, you'll be fine, no problem. But if you're using 4 like I am, where I use my system for multiple things, that's the best I'm gonna get. All right, so we got everything up and running. Everything's the same, haven't changed anything else. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna run a few tests on Cinebench, and what Cinebench does is basically benchmark your processor. So it gives you a reading of what it should be or compared to other ones and what it's performing at. There's 2 versions out. There's an R15 and an R20. Everybody's using the R20 recently. You can download both for free. I'll drop the links down below. I'm going to measure both of them, and then we're going to see comparatively where the 2700 sat versus the 3900. So I will be right back. Now, just looking at the results with the 3900 running out of the box, no overclock, all the same hardware, it almost doubled the performance of the 2700 at a clock speed of 4.2 gigahertz. 3900 is running at 3.8. And this is on an X470 board. So I'm going to go back to my statement that I've been saying since day one is, do you need an X570 board? Nope. Honestly, I'm not surprised at the results. I didn't think it was going to be anything different than what I got. What I am going to do now is I'm going to do a quick overclock on this, and I want to see how much of an improvement there is over the baseline. Because sometimes overclocking isn't necessarily worth it. Now, there's been a lot of other videos where folks are saying you don't have to overclock, you should overclock, there's no benefit, there's benefit. It's going to be personal preference. For myself, I want to see what it does, and I'm going to use the ASUS tool that comes with the board. I'm not going to go into the BIOS, I'm not going to fiddle around with anything like that. With the ASUS overclock tool, it does everything down to the BIOS for you, so you don't have to worry about fooling around with anything in there. So I'm going to go ahead, start that process, and we're going to run another test. So I will be right back. So here's the fun part about overclocking. It crashed. So you will run into this, regardless if you go into your BIOS and do it yourself, or if you use one of the onboard tools for the board. They'll get aggressive and try to push it as far as you can. Don't get nervous about it. All you want to do is go back and roll it back a little bit so you can get more stability out of the processor. And I will show you how to do that on the ASUS one as I get it loaded up. So here we are in the BIOS for the ASUS one. All I'm going to do is go over to Extreme Tweaker, and I'm going to change this to 43 because I feel that'll be a safe overclocking. We're still going to leave the memory where it's at, and we will get this to boot up right now. Okay, crash 2 at 4.3. So now we're going to drop it down. At least I just dropped it down to 4.25, and we're going to see if that is stable. Now I know the big thing with these particular processors is it has to have that PBO, the precision boost. Wow, I butchered that word. It likes to have that on for stability. I'm not running that right now, so I just want to see if I can beat this score, which is 7,084, which is what we got out of this, out of the box, with a slight bit of overclocking. So we're going to try number 3 and see if it stays. So far, so good. It's cruising right along, processing through here, so I think we're going to get a good run this time through Cinebench. Now, once again, not fiddling with any of the precision boost, nothing like that. This is just a straight overclock through the ASUS overclocking tool that's built in with the board. And it came in at 7415. So jumping up in the processor, going to a 4.25, gained minimal at best. Now, obviously, I'll play around some more with the settings, but I'm not seeing any benefit just running a straight overclock. Well, that was fun. As you can see, upgrading a CPU can be a little tricky at times. It really depends on silicon lottery, depending on what type of processor you get, and just some overall tweaks within your software and within the system. This isn't my first time I've come across this when upgrading processors. If I leave it factory straight out of the box, 9 out of 10 times it's running perfectly fine. No crashes, no hiccups, no anything. That 10th time, it's usually a bad processor. In this case, wasn't a bad processor, ran perfectly well out of the box until I decided to start working with some of the overclocking, and you saw that it'll crash a few times. Now, the tool that I use, which is Cinebench, helps me with knowing where the stability is on the processor. So being able to run it at 4.4 and then 4.3 and then finally getting it stable at 4.25, it's a great tool to use. In that way, you know, okay, my system is stable at this. If I want to try to push it, it may or may not work, but this is my ceiling right now. Now, if you are in the market to get a new board or you're building a new system, I'm going to drop a link down to a video from Buildzoid. If you haven't heard of him, he works with Gamers Nexus. If you haven't heard of them, they're probably the biggest PC YouTube channel that drills really down technically. But Buildzoid has an excellent video where he goes into X470 and X570 boards and where the best value is for you. So I'm going to link down there. Guy's incredible. He knows his stuff. It may get a little too technical. It might go slightly over some folks' heads, but bottom line is he'll give you the best value for where you want to be if you want to replace your board or you need to get a board. My opinion, if you're on an X470 board right now, don't spend the money on an X570. Unless you are hell-bent on having PCIe 4.0, and if you don't know what that is, then no, you don't need it. You're perfectly fine with what the boards are running right now. Now, if you got some value out of this video, please hit the like button. It lets me know that I'm doing right by you all, producing videos and giving you the content that you want to watch. If you absolutely liked it, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I put up new videos every week, and we'll be doing podcasts concerning off-topic items. And this week's podcast is probably going to be the PCIe 3.0 versus 4.0, because I feel there's a lot of misinformation there, and I'm going to try to boil it down to which camp you should be in. But as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next one.